Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are just going to give a couple minutes here to allow our attendees to join. Okay, everyone. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today on today's webinar, really addressing the state of the market and how it approaches business travel. The intention of today is to give you all a bit of a fly on the wall experience. We have a great panel here of industry experts and executives that have worked in travel for a long time. I did a quick total of what our time in the industry was, and we're sitting at 97 years, so just shy of 100 years of experience between the group here today. I am the most junior on the panel with 14 years experience, but obviously we look at our industry and it has gone through something that it had never gone through, and an evolution that COVID is really going to approach and change the way that we view business travel, not only in the now, but well into the future. So we're really excited to have an open dialogue and conversation so that you can hear the way that we are talking about this and interacting, and hopefully give you 2 or 3 things that you can take away as you're going to be approaching business travel in 2021, and how you may want to do that with some of the knowledge and expertise that we'll go through in the next hour. Before I get started, I did also want to let you know that we are recording the session, so no need to go ahead and take notes or feel that you need to do any of those pieces. We're going to send that over to you, and we absolutely would love to take your questions. So we're planning on leaving about 15 minutes at the end to answer some of the frequent questions that may come in throughout. So please feel free to go ahead and ask those, and we're happy to address them. What we don't get to, we will address in the recording, and we'll make sure to shoot those answers out as well. So to quickly introduce myself, my name is Amanda Vining. I am the president of Corporate Traveler and Stage and Screen Travel in the US. For those who are unfamiliar with Corporate Traveler or Stage and Screen and how they fit into the Flight Centre family, we focus on startup to mid-market business. So our goal is to offer not only the cost savings and expertise, but really give a handheld exclusive experience to all of our travelers and all of our clients. And I would love to just quickly go around and do an introduction to the rest of the panel before we go ahead and get started. So Chris, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Amanda. So I'm Chris Lyons. I'm Senior Vice President of the corporate brands here in Canada. Those corporate brands include the Corporate Traveler brand, Stage and Screen, FCM Travel Solutions, and CI Events. Billy and I work hand in hand with FCM here in Canada, and obviously between you and I in the Americas, we work very closely with the brands across borders. So happy to be here. I've worked in the industry 19 years, almost 20, and looking forward to discussing what we've all just gone through in the last 6 months.
Awesome. Billy?
Hi, I'm Billy McDonough. I'm president of FCM in the Americas. So FCM as a brand looks after large multinational, heavily managed travel programs. We are located in 97 countries, and I've been with Flight Centre Travel Group for 24 years. So I work very closely with Chris and the rest of the team.
Okay, awesome. And rounding out Flight Centre, Charlene?
Hi, everybody. I'm Charlene Lease. We like to say we're a company of many presidents, so I guess we have 4 presidents on the phone today. I'm the president of Flight Centre Travel Group in the Americas, which is the parent company for all of these fantastic corporate brands that you're hearing about. I'm based in Boston. I've been with the business for 25 years. I've been in the industry a little bit longer than that, so I have a feeling I'm probably the longest serving member of the group that makes up those 100 years, for whatever that's worth. Thanks, Amanda.
Awesome. And we have our dear partner with United Airlines, Joe, joining us. Joe, would you give us a quick introduction?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for dialing in today, and thanks to our great partners here at Flight Centre. I am not a president at United Airlines, so I'm clearly outranked, at least in terms of title here, but I'm our managing director of our agency accounts. I have the distinct privilege of managing all of our strategic partners in the agency space, and certainly the luxury of partnering with Flight Centre, both on the corporate and the leisure side over the last few years, and looking forward to participating today. So thank you, everybody. 15 years in the industry, so just above Amanda, but certainly trailing a few other peers here on the panel today.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your introductions. Just to kind of kick us off then, Charlene, if I can go over to you. So why the State of the Market report? Why did we do this? Why is it important? Just talk to us a little bit about the project from your lens.
Yes, absolutely. Would love to. First of all, I want to say that one of the tips that I received from Amanda as we first started this crazy virtual work living that we all have existed in so long is that you really need a microphone in order to conduct your meetings. So just want to show you guys that this is a great tip, and hopefully you can hear us all really well also. But in all seriousness, no, the State of the Market entire project and the strategy behind it was so critical to what we've been doing over the past few months, because as much as we think we know what our customers are feeling and what all of the buyers that are out there in the industry are going through during this time, this completely unprecedented time in our history, we don't really know until we actually speak with them. And that's so important to what we do in all of our corporate businesses, is really engage with our customers, spend as much time, what used to be face-to-face now obviously has to be virtual a bit, but really understanding what's important for taking care of their people first and foremost from a risk management perspective, and also what they're going to need to get back on the road, what it's going to take in order to build that confidence and to make sure that all of the information is at your fingertips. So having this entire State of the Market project was about really reaching out to as many customers as we could around the globe to understand how we can best serve and support them as we emerge from the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that this project was done across 2,500 surveys, 250 in-depth interviews that we have conversations with customers across brands and across countries, and hopefully have given us some really unique insights into how they're viewing business travel. I think you're absolutely right that it's not for us to just imagine the challenges that they may perceive them or when they're going to feel comfortable coming back, but really understand it from them. So I guess I could maybe start off there then, and thinking about some of the feedback that might have surprised some of you on the panel, and just we've gone through the State of the Market. If I could maybe start with you, Billy, what are some of the pieces that surprised you and what we heard from our customers?
I suppose the whole approval process, that's been something that certainly in the FCM space with managed programs has been a critical focus for a lot of our customers. And to see that 57% of people or of companies hadn't made any changes to their approval process, I thought was certainly different than what we've been experiencing in the Americas. That number was much lower for people who have not made any sort of changes to who approves travel. So I thought that one was definitely a standout based on what we're experiencing.
For sure. Joe, from your side of things with United and having so much exposure to kind of day to day, what's going on the planes, talk to us a little bit about what you thought was surprising or just how you've been handling this.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, it's been a constant evolution. I think that come middle of March, we put the handbrakes on really quickly and things collapsed, whether it was on the network side or anything else operationally, and certainly partnering with corporations, trying to figure out unused tickets and ETCs and everything else. It just happened so quickly. And it has been a constant evolution, and we're trying to be nimble and flexible and trying to figure out the right way to do it. Certainly having good partners like Flight Center to kind of help us with our mutual customers has helped us out. But when I was looking at the statement, the State of the Market report, I'd read it a few times. I kept gravitating towards the airline impact, and particularly how focused some people are on what the future of managed travel programs look like. And historically, we always talked about lowest logical fare or schedule or network, but I think if anything, this pandemic has highlighted that things need to evolve, and particularly in the corporate contracting space, thinking about duty of care or risk management reviews and how networks and flight availability are going to be changing. And when I saw an overwhelming 57% of people are looking at what their future programs are looking at, it really resonated with me, because we're trying to think, obviously optimistically, of when demand comes back, how we need to approach the corporate market space a little bit more differently than we have in the past. And I think it's going to be an evolution, and it's going to be working together and make sure we understand all the changes that need to take place. But I was just really happy to see that other people, your respondents, are actually taking a serious look at what else needs to evolve within that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard a lot in what you just said, but I think that, I found that interesting as well, where we are also asking who is happy with their response, and about half of the respondents had said that they wouldn't change their approach to COVID. The other half of the survey said that they would. So that obviously shows that there is opportunity. And like you're talking about that agility, right? So you also want to make sure that your partner can be malleable and move with you as things are changing so quickly. But one of the points that stuck out for me was thinking about how this relates to SMEs or SMBs, depending on how you want to say it. But kind of from the lens of like, they have that negotiating power now if they are still on the road that they may not have had in a large market space, but also just that so many were unmanaged. And a lot of our customers that come into working with a travel management company may be doing so for the first time and outgrowing that, but how this landscape might have changed things. So Chris, if you wouldn't mind, maybe, because I know you have such a close pulse on the corporate traveler business specifically, how has that come up in Canada? Like, have your customers talked to you at all about that, or some of your programs that you've come to manage? Any examples you could share?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, in our sales division, we're finding that we're winning a lot of business that was unmanaged, and the realization that having content and buying content in various different places is great at one time, but when crisis hits, it's a disaster. And we found that a lot of people had a difficult time bringing customers home or finding information, and information was changing so quickly in this arena that we're in right now, that if they didn't have a trusted source like a TMC or a partner to rely on to pass that information along, they're flying blind, and their travelers were being put at risk of not having up-to-date information as well as available help to get them home. So it's really shone a light on what, you know, an unmanaged program or a program with leakage can cause you in terms of risk. And a lot of companies are reassessing that and seeing that there's a lot of value in partnering with the TMC for many different reasons, but especially in times of crisis. The service and the ability to help people is just above and beyond what you can do on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting in the survey result where I think that, you know, speculatively, we would assume in working in this industry that need of a client has changed from necessarily budget being a derivative factor, or you have your client satisfaction as a derivative factor, but that duty of care, that responsibility for your people and putting them on the road. And very much so our clients echoed that sentiment, and that was absolutely brought to the top. Charlene, do you feel like that's here to stay now, and that COVID has forever changed our industry in the sense that that is going to be there? Or do you think that we're going to see continual changes between budget and their duty of care mattering? Or how do you feel like we need to continue to evolve and approach that as a business?
Yes, more and more, Amanda. I think that duty of care component is going to be critical. And I think it is absolutely here to stay. With other crises that have come and gone, you know, throughout our history in this travel business, of course, one of the first reactions is always that you need to know where your people are. You need to make sure that you can support them and help get them home, repatriate. That was such a big component of the first phase, really, of this crisis. But I think, like the State of the Market survey really showed, this pandemic is like nothing else that we've ever experienced. And the impact on the business, the impact on the airline industry is like nothing that we've experienced. And I think that people know it's probably not the end. There will be other pandemics that come and go. Unfortunately, there will be other illnesses as well. So I think that more than ever, the importance of a managed program has been really, really underscored. And I think what we've seen in this survey and other surveys within the industry is that the key stakeholders in most organizations, not just the travel managers, but the executives, the people that are responsible, you know, for the well-being of their personnel, are really understanding that having a managed program is imperative.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. You talked a little bit about we've been through things before, and we talked about our expertise on this panel, and many of us had been here for things like 9/11 or SARS. But if you look at those numbers comparatively, 9/11 was 30% down trading for a month when it came to air travel. If you look at SARS, it was down trading at 18% for a couple of months of time. And if you look at COVID, it is staggering. It's down 71% in May. And here we are in August, sitting at 51%. October, I believe, we're now in the high 40s. So thinking about kind of coming through challenge or how we come through this, I'd love to get, especially from you, Joe, from the United take on things like, what can we give to people that may ease their mind in coming back towards travel, or how you imagine coming through this, or just what are some pieces you could share with the listeners?
Yeah, you know, I mean, obviously, just based upon kind of where our networks are in hubs with Chicago, New York, and San Francisco, we are a pretty business reliant airline, and some of the stats you throw out, we see very similar to our numbers, and it has been a very, very low, prolonged trough for us to kind of get back to business. kind of from our perspective, at least the United's, is there's going to be a slow, steady increase, particularly on the business demand side. It's going to take a long time to get back to levels where we were before. A lot of it's going to be predicated on vaccines and more or less mass availability of vaccines. So kind of from our perspective, I think we're going to be in this trough for a little bit longer, but we're going to see that slow glacier pace coming back. But from our perspective, I think it's all about providing confidence and trust for those that are willing and able to travel right now, whether you're leisure or even on the corporate side, is making sure we level set your experience, because things have changed from airports to airplane to leaving your airplane. You know, you're going to see things like plexiglass and social distancing encouragements, mandatory mask wearing. And, you know, for those that haven't been on a plane in quite some time, these are pretty radical changes in at least your experience. I've been fortunate to at least be on one business trip, and candidly, it was new for me. It was a very traditional route, Chicago to LaGuardia. Honestly, we historically have had 15, 16 flights a day, and I could get on any plane more or less and get home relatively quickly. But just given the circumstances and the demand, we were down to a handful of flights a day. But more importantly, there's more information I needed to provide in order to kind of have that experience. Filling out health forms for New York City, making sure I had a pre-clearance with my manager, which, you know, for an airline, we got to make sure, you know, I used to have free reign to go wherever I needed to do, but making sure I had the essential letter as an airline employee in my pocket in case I needed, I was stopped on the streets of New York when I was attending my meetings. And again, it was just a day trip, but the experience and the documentation are needed. And candidly, I am one of many suppliers that everybody on this on this call works with. And it was good to see kind of what real life experience of what United is doing. But for those, certainly having a good partner that can help you navigate those who have essential travel needs during this time, or what the future holds, whether it's borders opening or how safety procedures are needed at an individual carrier or hotel. Partners like Flight Center are going to be a great resource to make sure that your travelers feel that level of comfort, safety, and know what that experience is going to be like, because it has shifted. And I think we're going to be there for a prolonged period of time till we get back to not having to wear a mask. And until the vaccine's there, we're just going to have to learn to adapt, and we have to do it together. And it's very interesting times we find ourselves in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting getting back on the road and traveling. I know I've traveled quite a few times since this has started. I've even done one international trip, but all these pieces you have to think about, like, where can I even get a rapid test that is going to be acceptable in that country, or how my form's going to be filled out, or it sounds silly, but I know one of the things I thought is, like, can you drink coffee at the airport? Like, is Dunkin' Donuts open? Typical Bostonian thing to think, but how am I going to be able to go and drink coffee in a mask? These are the thoughts that you have until you do it. You're like, oh, okay, I can get into this new flow, and this is kind of part of the new normal. But I guess for a lot of the people listening, and they're travel managers or they're travelers themselves, or they're considering, okay, we know we're going to open things back up come January, but we're really not sure what this should look like. And there's those opportunity pieces. What are some of the pieces of advice we could give, either for really anyone on the Flight Center side of things, that travel managers should be thinking about right now as they're going to be putting their travelers back on the road in a couple months' time? What's some advice you could give them on the key pieces they should be focusing on?
Well, to me, I'll jump in here and go first. I've been traveling a little bit as well. It's not as much about the booking process as what it was before. It's now about the planning and monitoring of what is happening in the place that you're going and where you're coming from. You know, I just an example, I was in Vancouver 2 weeks ago, and we booked that trip about 3 weeks out. And I wasn't sure until the week before whether or not I was actually going to attend that meeting. And that was the same with all of our attendees. We had to watch what was going on. There was local changes in terms of number of people that could be in offices or number of people that could be at restaurants, and everything's changed in that regard. So it's not as much about the booking of the travel, it's the planning and monitoring. And then what happens when you come home? So one of the things that we know is that we had to explain, or we had to plan out what we would have to do to allow people to have the confidence of traveling and going home and being safe around their families and coming back into the office. That's a complete paradigm shift, where before it was like, get me to my meeting, get me back home, I'm very happy. The travel in between is the pain. Now the travel is the experience that we have to all endure to get through and to make it through. But we have to give confidence to our loved ones at home that are waiting for us to come back safely, so that they're not worried about being sick. and know that when we're getting to locations, that the locations are ready for us to be there, that we're ready to meet safely, that we have thought through, just like what you said, being at the airport, can I get a coffee? Do I have to buy food in advance? What's the service going to be on the plane? Are there any services on the plane? That's the stuff that we have to think of now, and we have to inform people before they go to the airport. So they're prepared, they know what to do, and they can safely go about their day.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think it's also the ever-changing nature, which you've obviously alluded to as well. And I know the survey talked about the importance of having information at your fingertips and dashboards as to, what is the policy of our suppliers? What's the policy in destination? What's the current border situation? Because border opening and closing is so rampant everywhere. So I think, couldn't agree more, Chris. Once you're in the airport, I know from traveling and what we've done internally, I feel really safe when you're in the airport because, United and the other suppliers have gone to such measures to make sure that healthy protocols are certainly in place. So you feel fine once you're there, but it's a whole different process of preparation and return. And I guess, Joe, I just want to flip kind of a question to you as well, because I have not been through Chicago, but I keep hearing how busy Chicago is, obviously being one of the biggest hubs in the world. And I'm understanding that it's still quite busy on a day-to-day basis and getting busier by the moment. So what could you tell everybody just about the current status of O'Hare?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to brag about my airline. So thanks for the opportunity. But you know what, it is nowhere near as busy as it used to be. But it is nice to see some people coming back to work. Candidly, it's predominantly driven by a lot of leisure travelers, right? People that willing and able to fly. But you would be surprised at kind of the overall experience in terms of the cleanliness and just how everybody is appreciative of kind of the protocols that we put into place. Like, everybody appreciates that 6 foot distance. Everyone I've seen is always wearing a mask. There just seems to be this common understanding amongst our travelers that safety, social distancing, hygiene is necessary for everybody to get where we need to do. But we are seeing some slight traction. I would certainly say March, April were not very good times for us. We saw a nice little bump at the end of June into July. Unfortunately, we saw a bit of a phase 2 kind of hit. But since then, we have seen a kind of a slow and steady progress. Chicago and our mid-continent hubs seem to be the ones that are really thriving at the moment, just given a lot of our demand is coming from domestically. Denver and Houston in particular seem to be very busy at this particular moment, relatively speaking. Sorry, not extremely busy, but it is nice to see that our folks are taking good care of our customers as and when they come on board. We're hoping to build out our networks and put in the right capacity based upon demand. And hopefully as we get through this, we can continue to grow back to the levels we were at before.
It's interesting you were saying there with Denver and Houston, and it's indicative of the survey results too, right? Where we're seeing wholesale, we're seeing manufacturing, we're seeing mining, we're seeing that oil and gas industry. Those who have to travel are the ones that are starting to return to it, as well as a lot of the executives at our other, clients that are doing it what they need to do to make sure that they're keeping the lights on, and are the ones that are happy to get back on the road. Does anyone have maybe some good advice that they've been given from a client that has had to put people back on the road through this or sooner, on just the way that they approached it, or anything that they'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll comment on that one. I think highlighting the importance of it's not just completing the transaction like Chris alluded to. It's really, because previously you could set it and forget it. It appeared in your, in your app or on your calendar and it was done. Now it's making sure that you proactively check as things continue to evolve on a sometimes day-by-day basis. We had hosted an internal meeting where the state where we were hosting it at shifted the amount of attendees that could be in any one room. So, that only happened 3 days out. So we had to, again, be on top of as things continue to change to make sure that the venue we were using was able to continue to accommodate us. And luckily from the transportation to the accommodation and the facilities, everything worked out really well because they're becoming as kind of as accustomed to this constantly evolving landscape as possible. So yeah, I would say just constantly, continually monitor whatever plans you're making because things change all the time.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, for us, there's a lot of return on investment assessments that are going on when anyone's looking to travel. So it's the total cost of the trip from the front door when you leave until you shut up when you get back in. There's a lot of eyes on that, and like we've discussed before, the approval levels are now not 1 deep; they're 2 and 3 deep on some companies. Some of them go to CFOs and CEOs. So everyone's watching the bottom line very closely right now and ensuring that if they do need to travel, it's for very good, valid reasons and something that will make a difference in their business.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. One of the questions that came in, I think actually just comes right off that point, just in what we might have learned from other countries, early indicators. Obviously, we've seen this go through Asia, and we're starting to see some of the markets bounce back. Can maybe you, Charlene, share a little bit about what we've learned and how we've been adaptive to how we're imagining 2021 to look like for the Americas businesses?
Yes, of course. I mean, I think all of us, including Joe, are part of a big global business. So nothing that we look at is in isolation. And that moving needle of what's happening with travel around the world is something that I know Flight Center Travel Group, we talk about every day, really. And while, of course, the business in domestic China was the first to start to rebound because they were impacted first, and we still are seeing much better numbers, just as the survey really indicates globally. We're seeing that within our company as well, that the domestic China market, the domestic New Zealand and Australia market certainly had rebounded early on, but then they've also gone through a number of ups and downs since then, in particular with the border closures that we talked about earlier. So I think, keeping our finger on the pulse of exactly what's happening and where people are allowed to travel, where we might have the opportunity for some travel bubbles or travel bridges, and I'm sure Joe could talk more to that as well. That's becoming so important to everything we do as a business, for advising our customers, making sure that that information is at their fingertips, and also trying to forecast, as to what the business is going to look like over the next several months. It's a moving target, but having all of that global data at our fingertips and understanding where our customers want to go, when they'll be comfortable and confident traveling in certain locations outside of the domestic market, all of that really is heavily involved in all of our discussions and planning sessions going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought when we were looking at some of the global findings that came back, the consistency around what travelers were feeling like they could have had to give them more support was really defining what business critical travel means. So you've all really alluded to that. So Billy, you talked about the approval process, Chris, you have as well, that for a travel manager on the phone or thinking about that, what is business critical and what is your policy and procedures as to how you want that process to work internally is probably something that should be front of mind for people. And then also just the communication, communicating to people when there is going to be understanding of adaptation to when there are going to be putting people back on the road, or who or how they're going to communicate if things change, or what their real lifelines are in those moments. It sounds like those are all really important things and things that we can probably learn from. But just thinking a little bit about, the cost of travel and money talking right now, and things that people could be doing as far as negotiating with air or hotel, or I don't know, Joe, if you have some advice on what people who could be thinking about doing if they, haven't negotiated their United contract yet, or they're looking at the year ahead. What's some advice that you would give to the people that maybe?
Yeah, I think we're kind of committed to being a little bit more agile and nimble. I think United's in a good position of kind of leading with using numbers to kind of figure out what we want the future to look like. We were very aggressive with scaling back our network when we first saw some of this pandemic hitting and demand and dropping really quickly. I think we were one of the first carriers, at least in the corporate space, to kind of waive kind of whatever performance requirements that were associated with our contracts. I think that was a bit of an easy softball for us to kind of toss out there, because given the lack of demand, that all those historical contracts and terms that we had put together really made no sense in the pandemic era. And I think we're going to continue down that path until we figure out what the crystal ball looks like, or what the demands of our business travelers need to be. I don't think there's any rush for us to kind of figure out what a new contract looks like in the corporate space, but we do really want to predicate it on what demand looks like. We've done a few things. One is we've certainly pivoted some of our structures that we historically had not been in. As a good example, this winter, we're going to be flying a lot more leisure destinations, not out of our hubs, that we would normally have not done. Again, that's just matching supply with demand and where those needs and opportunities present themselves. Over in the corporate space, we want to actually hear from our corporate customers as to where those demand bubbles are. We've developed something called the Network Insight Tool. It's on our Jetstream, which is our kind of our website for our both agency and corporate partners. But we want to hear directly from our corporations as to where they think those demand opportunities are. That information is fed directly into both our domestic and international planning partners. And as we're trying to figure out what our new network looks like in 21 and beyond, it's great to have insights directly from our customers. And I know Flight Center, you guys have been tremendous trying to help us identify and capitalize on whatever opportunities and pockets that are showing up. You know, it's our effort to be fast and nimble as best as we possibly can. But I think our approach is really going to be matching supply and demand, and more importantly, working with our corporate customers to figuring out what those contracts need to look like. And I think your survey did an excellent job of highlighting how things have changed. You know, lowest logical fare to duty of care and what networks look like. These are all great things that travel managers need to be evaluating and looking forward to in the future. So that's kind of our take, and we want to be there for everybody as best as we can and build out the best network as we get through this pandemic with our right partners.
Yeah, it's
That's
really, sorry.
point. Sorry, I think on the survey too, it highlighted that the industries that are traveling have found a unique opportunity to work with their suppliers, even more so than they have in the past, to be able to negotiate the right terms and provide the right services. And I think we found that too as a business, in particular working with United and our key suppliers, that now is a time more than ever that we can come together to really develop programs that offer a win-win, you know, for the customers and also for the suppliers. And I think that that's something we've appreciated. Certainly the ability to add capacity that you know, the airlines are dealing with constantly, right? Trying to determine where they need capacity, where they have to make changes, and where you're going to pull back. That communication between our organizations has been critical to be able to know and advise our customers what the, you know, the next few months ahead look like. So I think that's also been a really good, I guess, silver lining, certainly, of the pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. Really seeing in those partnerships and in the supply chain, I'm sure for those who are listening, it's like who is here through this, right? And actually establishing themselves to do the right things, that they'll be here on the other side, and you have that partnership you can trust, and really those lifelines as you get people back on the road. Obviously, this has been going on since May in terms of the state of the market and the continual surveys and the speaking to our customers. Charlene, I don't know if maybe you want to share some of the things that we've done on the Flight Center side through that time period, or how we're really setting ourselves up post COVID, or at least when things get to some semblance of normalcy.
Sure, absolutely. I think this is similar to United as well. But I think the first order of business for us as a company was making sure that we secure the future of the business and all of our people. You know, our people are what makes our company successful. And those folks are responsible for the key relationships with which we have with customers on the corporate and on the leisure side of the business. So that was the first thing, just making sure that we knew, based on the fact that this runway to recovery was going to have a lot of bumps along the way, and it was certainly unprecedented. We figured that out from the beginning, and we wanted to make sure that we could take care of the amount of time it could possibly take to emerge. And once that was taken care of, and we knew with confidence we could go out and say that, look, we've been able to do what it takes to secure the company for the future. It was then about fast tracking all of the critical projects as an organization that we've been wanting to do, whether it's implementing new technology, taking on new pieces of business. We were also very lucky in that we were able to make an acquisition during this time, because certainly there is some consolidation in the market, and we found a fantastic opportunity in this case with weve, which is a tech supplier. So we really just wanted to use our people in the operation to make sure that as we emerge from the crisis, we've actually covered off so much more that we wanted to do from a project landscape than we could have done in a 6-month time frame, because we didn't have the transactional work. So while we had downtime, we were really trying to make sure, and that's ongoing, but so proud of our teams really globally in all that we've been able to achieve during this really stressful, incredibly challenging time, to make sure that we come out even stronger as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you just said there that I would like to pull out is just around technology. You know, we talk a lot about the communication during this time with our travelers, but realistically, we live in an on-demand world where people are used to getting a lot of information at their fingertips. How does technology relate to all this, and how we'll approach that traveler interaction in the future?
That one for me as well. I'm happy to chime in, and then please, everybody else can add to it. But I think it's about the perfect combination for us as a business of providing that care that we're known for, that unprecedented, really fantastic service, that personal service that our corporate brands are known for, and coupling that with a technology platform that provides that same level of personal service from technology. So it's that blend, I think, of making sure that we can do both. And we are really an alternative in the business because we have that boutique offering of service. We have local support in all of the markets in which we operate. And we also want to have design and control of the technology platforms that can provide that same level of service, but do it in an automated fashion. So that's really what we've been trying to focus on as a business. And I think we've got some exciting things to release to the market in the months ahead. And again, a lot of those have been fast tracked with the downtime that we've had. So technology is ever important. It has been for a number of years, but I think, again, coming out of this crisis, it's going to continue to be paramount in everything that we do to provide information at fingertips and also to provide more efficiencies because we've got fewer people in the business, let's face it right now, just based on the current landscape. So we want to make sure that we're equipping our teams with everything they need to be super efficient in taking care of our customers.
Great. Chris, anything you want to add that's similar or different for the Canadian business?
Yeah, I think just to add on to what Charlene said, is getting the right mix between technology and human touch is so important. What we've seen here on the Canadian side of the business, and I don't know if it's the same on your side, is that our online bookings have dropped off dramatically. Some customers have completely shut them off. And the reason for that is that care and that touch that an individual can add to the booking experience. But we need to also couple that with a technology that then tracks them, that then has the duty of care element. So it's that perfect blend that we have really strived for as a business and continue to refine. That's been so important for our customers. And we have such an exciting lineup for the future of what we're doing. So it's a great mix and we're looking forward to having more volume, but that's where I am there.
Yeah.
And I would say that's not entirely different for the large market customers either. I think the basic needs of all of our collective customers are the same. They need, that combination of somebody who can answer that question because, there are lots of sources of information and because it's ever evolving, just knowing that there's somebody there who can, say, hey, I would recommend this versus that based on, feedback we get from our travelers. And I think that's become more and more valued, where I think invisibility has always been a challenge in our industry when you try to have that balance between technology and people. And I think this has really helped level things out to show in a lot of instances, it does make more sense to rely on, a human working with the technology tools as opposed to being exclusively one or the other. Yeah. I think we'll see that change, hopefully for a long time to come. That'll be how people approach this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I could jump in too, I think from our perspective, technology has been critical for us to navigate through these corrals, particularly kind of when it gets down to the customer experience. I think we've all had some personal experience, but the world has changed from getting on an airplane. And I think we've done an amazing job of getting out there, is level setting those expectations with our travelers and just making sure that they know what they're going to experience when they get to the airport. And we're going to continue to evolve that space as this pandemic continues or prolongs, or if borders open, we have to be able to be in a position to help level set those expectations. But we come from like a B to C type of opportunity, right? We're trying to make sure that our people that are flying on United understand what's going to happen with them. But it's a much bigger world. I get that in global business travel, or even if it's on domestic travels, and having folks like Flight Center kind of help you, whether it's particularly on the agent side, understanding what those expectations are from getting into the Uber, getting onto the airplane, leaving the airplane, getting to the hotel. It is a much bigger ecosystem than just one singular carrier. And certainly having good partners that helps kind of navigate those and level set those expectations. And having the right technology and communications are going to be critical.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really important too to also know for your employees, like what are their expectations, as you said, Joe, but also their wants and needs. Like I know it's really interesting as we look within our business of who wants to be back in the office, who doesn't see that return, who has trepidation to travel, who can't wait for the sales meeting to get put back on a calendar. There's so many interesting parts when you start looking within your own businesses too, to kind of start determining, well, then what should my policy look like, and how can I have those expectations that bring that employee satisfaction that naturally business travel was such a big part of for many people, and kind of how they're going to think about that into their future. I'm probably going to take a minute here to pull up some of the questions. Quite a few have come in. So unless anyone has anything they want to add at this time, I'll probably get into a few of these.
You know, Amanda, I just thought Billy might have some interesting insights also on the meeting and event side of the business, because he has the pleasure of running a meeting and events business during this pandemic. And it was touched on the survey too, about how that has been impacted. So might be helpful.
I think the term agility was mentioned earlier, and for me, the best example of being agile was how our events business, CI Events, managed to pivot where there were ongoing, very close to execution dates of major events that had to be reaccommodated to become virtual events. So hundreds upon hundreds of delegates, and how to really take and embrace a new technology. Like we highlight the importance of technology. What we're on right now has pretty much become our reality for the last 7 months. Well, in the meeting and event space, you've got to capture and engage with those attendees for multiple days. So to really see some of the pivots that were made, and the acceleration of saying, that's fine, we can't get your 300 people here, but here's what we can do to still help your business deliver the objective, whether it was a sales conference or an incentive type trip, to still give people the experience that they felt rewarded or communicated to or inspired. And definitely the CI Events team is probably busier than they've ever been with something that, I don't know, a year ago would have been a very small part of our business. It's now become something that's almost the entire business. So it was really good to see. So thanks for that handball, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. That adaptation is so important. And I think we've all learned that there's quite a bit we can accomplish over these Zoom calls. But we all, I'm sure, for us on the phone in the industry, but many are listening as well, that the Zoom fatigue can be real too. And look forward to getting back.
Absolutely.
Hopefully not experiencing too much of the Zoom fatigue on this call, but so quickly switching gears, a lot of the questions that have come in so far are around the cost of travel. I think there's probably 3 or 4 here, just about the cost of travel now. What does the industry think is going to change? Do people think that airfares are going to be going up? Do they think hotel prices are going to go up? Are they going to reduce further? Does anyone have any insights into what they believe the cost of business travel is going to look like in the future? I can shoot that over to Joe. Why don't we start with you? You probably have the closest pulse to it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, pricing and revenue management is not necessarily my background, so I can help you add some commentary as what we think is going to happen. With limited supply and limited demand, it's possible fares may go up and may go down, but at the same time, there are a lot of airlines competing for a limited amount of demand. So, I think it depends on the day of the week and what markets everybody is chasing for, that, prices are going to continue to evolve as this kind of supply and demand kind of adapts and adjusts. I guess from an airline perspective, we want to make sure we're competitive and making sure we are trying to attract as many people as we possibly can. I think a lot, again, is predicated on business travel when that comes back. I mean, I think that's been a pretty big challenge for us to kind of navigate through it, just given the certain dependency on our business portfolio, but we're certainly going to compete as best as we can in the leisure space. So, a lot remains to be unseen. I think everybody's network and footprint in the airline industry is going to continue to evolve, and I think that's going to be reflected in pricing and everything else as well.
Mm-hmm. Any other advice from
That's certainly what we're seeing.
budgets? Good.
Yeah, I would just echo that a bit. I mean, that's certainly what we're seeing, Amanda, I think, in our business, as you know. Initially, the prices absolutely went down when we looked at our average cost of an airline ticket, average daily hotel night, et cetera. Now they're starting to come back up a bit, but it absolutely depends on the market and whether or not there's competition in that market, on that city pair, et cetera.
Yeah. And I think that from a lot of our clients' perspective, when you think about like if they have, hotel limits in certain cities, those are going to look different right now, right? That room in New York or that room in Boston might look a heck of a lot different in what that nightly cap could be. I think the biggest piece of advice that we can probably give is we've talked about pivoting, we've talked about malleability, flexibility, agility. It's likely reviewing things on a monthly or at least quarterly basis on what's realistic and where you could have those savings and plan early, set those contracts and spend the time to really flex your budget and your spending now, because all of us in our industry really need it, right? So I think that that's probably all things that people are just going to have to realize, that those set in stone pieces that might have worked for a year in the past are likely going to need to change a lot more often.
I mean, and we've seen some of our larger customers amend their policies where you had to generally connect because it was the lowest logical fare. So balancing that with traveler satisfaction and duty of care to not have people going via 3 or 4 places, the cost of the trip goes up, but the volume of trips are decreasing because, obviously not everybody who used to travel is traveling. So it's a balancing act, and, kind of weighing in all those various factors where previously it was cost driven. It was like, no, it has to be the cheapest. Now we're seeing a lot of movement where, the trip cost may be going up slightly.
Yep. I love that point, Billy. And that's a lot of our customers are saying things like, yeah, everyone would Uber previously, but now they're wanting car service. So let's go out and negotiate a car service contract, because that's something that they're going to be looking to do a lot more. These are the pieces where when you're budgeting or you're thinking about your policy, you probably want to really evaluate where your priority is and hopefully reach out to anyone who can be consultative for you. Obviously in our world, our account management teams are going to be happy to take on those conversations. But one of the questions that came in was just saying that need for consultancy services and needing someone to help really consult on travel, which is typically one of a business's largest expenses. Obviously, I know that there's a consultancy division within your business, Billy. Would you mind sharing a little bit about how they've been handling this or how they're approaching it?
Again, another opportunity that was created during the pandemic was the increased demand for taking all of these disparate pieces of information and the changing landscape to make recommendations about what people should do as far as partnerships, suppliers and contracts, et cetera. We've also then seen that kind of evolve into creating a framework for what are some of the key points and decisions that your organization needs to make before you resume travel. So that when you do give the thumbs up to say, hey, it's, we're back on the road again, you've clearly thought out and covered off on a lot of, some of the key points that could impact your business and your travelers in the future. So we've definitely seen an increased demand with our consultancy business, Fourth Dimension. And we're also seeing now, as we've right-sized our industry because of the lack of demand, we're seeing that a lot of our customers have decreased resources available to focus on travel. So there's been opportunities for our customers to outsource some things that used to be done by them internally. So it's just, again, trying to work together to say, all right, we're downsizing in this part of the business. Can you assist us in still delivering on, our hotel program or whatever the specific requirement is. So it all does come back to that frequent communication and review, because you're not going to know in some instances what you need in 3 months' time until you're there. So just keeping abreast of what is constantly changing. Some of the change is really good, but that could force us to maybe pivot on something that was recommended 3 months ago because all the other factors have changed. So it's just being flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So getting into a couple more questions here, given we have some time. Joe, a couple have come in directly for you, so I'm just going to hit you with them. Some I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer, like how long we'll have to wear masks on planes. Not there yet. One specific one was around the new United program Team Together with Peerspace, and just how that might be applicable to some that are listening.
Yeah, sure. So it's a brand new kind of marketing partnership that we came up and I think we announced this week. And I think it's just our efforts to be a little bit more creative out in the marketplace and partnering with those that may not necessarily need office space that they had in the past. Probably similar to you guys. My office where I normally reside is still not open. We've been out since March or May, and candidly, I think as the world evolves, people are taking a look at all kinds of cost structures, whether it's real estate, whether it's anything else that's, I'm sure everything's under evaluation. And the likes of having a partner like Peerspace, who kind of offers temporary officing opportunities within a given city for those that may be in town for a little bit of time or don't necessarily need full-time residency or a long-time lease. Just provides a good opportunity for those to be a little bit more nimble and agile in terms of their real estate requirements for those coming in. I think what we're observing, and you guys can probably relate to this too, is that in the virtual world, people could live in Indianapolis and their offices could be in San Francisco. And maybe that's the future. Maybe that's how we kind of navigate. From an airline perspective, we're excited because that person now has to fly into San Francisco, which happens to be a hub. But having a good partner like Peerspace that could provide some temporary officing seems to be a good match for us.
Yep. Great. Makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
Yeah, there was a couple questions, I guess, just in regards to those pieces, just around how business travel with that downsizing, realistic of spaces, how that's going to work for gatherings, conferences, et cetera. So can Peerspace sounds like can fill a lot of those gaps?
I believe so, and I'm confident that they're going to adhere to local requirements in terms of social distancing and numbers of people that can get in there. Like everybody else, it could be at a municipal level, it could be at a state level, it could be at a different kind of levels, but it's a good partner to have that can kind of help navigate those corrals to make sure everybody is safe, comfortable, and appreciates the requirements associated with navigating these pandemics.
Okay, great. Anyone else have anything they want to add?
I just think that's so important, Amanda. I mean, I know certainly for our company, that's our business, right? Our business is travel, our business is opening up the world, our business is getting together with our customers and collaborating and so forth. So we're certainly just really trying to kind of reinvent the way we do that in a way that's safe, but still celebrates what's so important to that culture. And we've done a bit of that over the past few months internally as much as we can, and we'll continue to in the future. But I think it is going to be important, at least until we have a vaccine, right? Or at least until the disease is eradicated, perhaps, that we find a way to maintain those important interactions for our customers, with our customers, and with our people internally, but do it in a much smaller fashion, in a way that follows the health and safety protocols and people feel comfortable about. So it's certainly keeping us on our toes. And I think it's something that probably all of our customers are looking at as well, regardless of the state. And I know our company certainly entered this entire pandemic in an incredible state of strength and growth. But we're really having to take a look at the way that's going to be for the next several years ahead, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly through those growth times, and all of this is very humbling in many ways, but also looking at really appreciating every one of those customer relationships. And of course, for Joe, partners like yourself at United, really appreciating the way that we've leaned on each other through all of this. I know we'll be very happy when we see a return, and certainly appreciate what we've been through together.
Oh, it would be I will bring the champagne to your offices, believe you me.
We
all want to be back in those friendly skies.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're getting close to time here. I am going to just do one more question, and Chris, if it's all right with you, I'm going to kick it over to you, and then we'll just kind of wrap up some final thoughts and let people get back to their days. But this question was another one that came up a little bit about just like value generating business and what we imagine that to be, or how we can encourage travel again, or if there's anything in the now that we could be doing. What could you share from your side of things that you think we could be doing now?
To encourage value generating business or travel? Well, yeah, it's that return on investment in travel is like, what are you going for and why, and what is the value that you're bringing back to your company or your organization that you're going out to get. And, it's really just highlighting and honing in on what that might be for you. That's so important right now, because you really do have to back up the costs that you're putting out there. And it has to have some sort of value. Before, some of us are guilty of getting on a plane to go into a meeting that you're like, I could probably do this virtually. I probably don't need to go, but it's better to do it in person. And we all know it's better to do it in person. We do go on meetings that may not move the dial, but I think those days are long and gone for the time being. And now you have to go out there and show whatever you're doing is bringing value back, whether it's a sales meeting, whether or not it's supply chains that you have to fulfill orders for. It has to have a real reason to go. And, that's what our customers are telling us. We're speaking to them all the time, and they're struggling with not being on the road, but they're also not confident yet to get on the road. So it's whether or not we can give them an assessment tool that, you can plug in different metrics that might make sense to you, like a savings calculator or ROI calculator. Something we should discuss more with our customers and see what that might be for their business, so that we can dedicate something for them.
Yep, absolutely.
This is super important to me, I think, and I know that a lot of our individual groups have been getting together as an industry and networking and trying to see, regardless of companies and agendas, how we can come together as an industry to really support our customers as we emerge from this. And so much is going to have to do, of course, with testing, because it's going to be a while, most likely, before we get to a vaccine. But it's about making sure that our customers feel safe in traveling. And if there is more an availability to do rapid testing, especially for certain destinations or for certain city pairs, not just in the leisure space, but in the corporate space, that is going to help absolutely make people feel more comfortable getting out there. And it's going to help to bring a lot of a return to the business. So I think that's one thing, certainly lobbying with the government, various governments on border openings when it's safe to do so, and when we've got, again, proper testing, proper protocols, proper support for that. I think I've really seen the industry come together, and it's been amazing, because it is a time just in general for all of humanity to make sure that we're doing what we can to support each other, not just our individual businesses. And that's going to be, I think, incredibly important as we continue.
Awesome. Billy, any closing thoughts?
I just think it goes back to that agility. Like, we have to continue to think in a fluid way, because the situation we're dealing with is fluid. We've come through a lot of things that we've mentioned before, whether it was SARS or 9/11, that as impactful as they were short in duration. This has gone on for a really long time. It will continue to go on, but we have to be open and react to whatever opportunities or challenges present themselves. And I think that's what's going to get all of us collectively through this, because it's that spirit of, never let a good pandemic go to waste. Use this time wisely. Think of, you still have to solve the problem. You may need to solve it a different way. I think that's where I see the benefits of partnering up and having discussions like this to make sure that we're not letting this just pass us by. We're actively participating in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joe?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I certainly want to echo both Billy and Charlene's kind of commentary as well. I mean, I think if anything, we have learned that evolution and revolution, or however you want to phrase it, is going to be critical through all of this. And partnerships matter, and making sure you have strong relationships with the folks that are going to help us all get through this. And I appreciate everybody's time today, at least Amanda and you in particular kind of helped facilitating these conversations and asking those hard-hitting questions. But it was a good exchange of opportunities, and kind of taking the time to digest the state of the market report helped put things into perspective for me and for my colleagues at United. And it was just an incredible piece of research that certainly we found tremendous value. And to Billy's point, it's all about evolution and figure out what's next. Making sure that we are confident that we are providing the right experiences for our customers that are safe, and making sure that the information is in the right people's hands at the right times when they're making those critical decisions. They're going to be critical. And I just want to say thank you very much for allowing me to participate today. It was very nice hanging out with you and getting to chat a little bit. And certainly from United Airlines, we're certainly very excited to get you back up in the air as and when we can. And when you guys are ready out there in the world, we'll be here for you. So
let's go. I'm ready.
All right.
I'll volunteer to fly if somebody else doesn't want to fly.
Thank you.
I will join you. Well, I certainly appreciate all of your time. I got a lot from this, and hopefully for those listening, you got a lot from it too. But some of the reoccurring themes I really notice is, it is a buyer's market. Lock in your best rates and deals and be in front of it. Make sure you know what your policy is, have the time and be ready to be adaptable and be nimble. Make sure that you have great partners that you trust, that you can lean on for consultancy services and services through this to really support your people and your travelers, and really just keep that agile, future-focused mindset, and we'll all get through this together, and I'll look forward to those days where we do. But I sincerely appreciate all of your insights, not just today, but every day, and thank you so much for the hour.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.